What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? The questionable decision to pull Ryne Nelson. And do the Dbacks need a more Tom Thibodeau-esque coach?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.portfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of MLB. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're going to be discussing the Dbacks snapping their losing streak against the San Francisco Giants. Do the Dbacks need a more Tom Thibodeau-esque coach? Yeah, so make an NBA comparison on a baseball podcast. And will the real Zac Gallen please stand up against San Fran in Game 2? So a whole bunch I want to talk to you guys about on today's podcast. But first, I want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. We try to go live Sunday through Thursday after Dbacks games. Hit the bell icon on YouTube so you get notified when I go live. Or follow me on social media because I always tweet before I go live at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. All right, let's talk about Game 1, Dbacks versus Giants. Dbacks snapped their 4-game losing streak against San Fran. And for the Dbacks, it was a game where Ryne Nelson shines. He continues to prove to the organization, to the fan base, that he is the best pitcher in the Dbacks organization. I have to run the numbers, but last time I checked, if you go back to July 1st of 2024 till right now and just looked at the games and the innings that Ryne Nelson started, before tonight, he was at like a 3.2 ERA over his last year pitching for the Dbacks as only a starter, over 100 innings pitched. Now he's probably around 150 innings pitched. He's probably around like a 3.1 ERA, maybe even below a 3 ERA over his last calendar year. Ryne Nelson just continues to shine, continues to dominate, continues to throw that fastball, and he looked great in this game against the San Francisco Giants. But the story of the night in this game was Ryne Nelson looking fantastic, but in just one pitch, Torey Lovullo pulls Ryne Nelson in the 7th inning when he's cruising. Yes, there's a couple of guys on, but we know this D-backs bullpen, the up and down nature of it. Ryne Nelson gets pulled in the 7th. Torey Lovullo claims because of the pitch count, he believes in the numbers, he believes in the analytics, so he goes to the bullpen, even though the numbers and the stats tell you we probably have the worst bullpen in Major League Baseball. Torey Lovullo overlooks those numbers, takes out Ryne Nelson, brings in Juan Murillo, who we do like, but rookie, raw, could only put so much on his plate. One pitch, double in the gap. Alek Thomas does his absolute best to make a stellar play. He's on his horse. You could see him tracking the ball. You're like, there's a chance. Like in the moment watching it, it feels like it's going to hit that alley, but you know how incredible Alek Thomas is as a defender. So watching it, the back of your head, you're probably like, there's a 20 to 30% chance Alek Thomas can run down this ball in the alley. But the ball, unfortunately, hits the alley. D-backs give up the lead, and it's like, it's another night where Torey Lovullo, you question his decision-making, and I know in hindsight it's tough to do it. You hate to do it to people, but Torey Lovullo has been a running thing all season long, and I did a segment earlier on the podcast yesterday where we talked about how because we power rank the biggest issues I believe that the D-backs have faced in 2025. And the biggest issue to me has been Torey Lovullo's bullpen management and just the overall management of the pitching staff, because you watch that finale against the Miami Marlins and Jalen Beeks walks batter after batter after batter till the bases are loaded. He faces Otto Lopez, who he gave up a home run to the previous night. What does Torey Lovullo do? He makes Jalen Beeks face Otto Lopez after walking the bases loaded. And of course, Otto Lopez, 2-run single to give the Marlins the lead. And then what does Torey Lovullo do? He leaves Jalen Beeks out there for another batter and gives up another hit, more runs scored. And it's like, why are pitchers like Jalen Beeks, and we've seen it multiple times with the bullpen, like, why are those guys allowed to just stay out there batter after batter when they're struggling? Meanwhile, Ryne Nelson, who was fantastic all night, ran into a little bit of trouble in the 7th, but he was just 1 out away. Why not trust your starter, who's been the best pitcher in your rotation, the best pitcher on your staff for weeks now, arguably over the last calendar year? Why not just trust that guy to get one final out for your ball club? You know you can't trust this bullpen. You've seen the bullpen so much this season, meltdown after meltdown. We just saw it against the Miami Marlins. Like, why would we trust this bullpen to get the job done? I don't understand. That's where that's where I grow frustrated as a fan. And we'll talk about Torey Lovullo's comments and his decision making and him defending his decision more in segment number 2. But I was just so frustrated with that move. And I think a lot of D-backs fans were, because we wanted Ryne Nelson to finish the game, get the W, and instead D-backs bullpen blows the Ryne Nelson win. But thankfully, the bottom of the lineup for the D-backs, super clutch tonight. Alek Thomas gets on 3 times. Jose Herrera moves him over. Perdomo scores them to give the D-backs the lead. Eugenio Suarez, he hits a monster home run to give the D-backs another insurance run. Gurriel had a home run earlier in this game. And we even had some potential fan interference. I think when watching the game live, I thought it was fan interference on the replay. I guess it was fair to overturn the call, but I love the fact that they overturned the call. They said, okay, it wasn't fan interference, but that ball wouldn't have left the yard, so you got to go back to second base. I thought that was a good job overall by my Major League Baseball and the umpire crew in that situation. We really got everything in this game, because the D-backs games, they're always wacky. They're always fun. And so, of course, we got fantastic Ryne Nelson, who just went out there and just dominated with fastballs. He did not care. Let's see how many fastballs he threw tonight. 62 fastballs of his 88 pitches. So 70% of the time, Ryne Nelson, of course, threw that fastball, and he dominated the San Francisco Giants hitters. D-backs get their 15th win of June, and disappointing to say the least, because we've been saying all month long we wanted 16 wins as that barometer for the D-backs, because we thought that would be the perfect number for the D-backs to have a good month, stay in the wild card race. They got exactly 16 wins the last 2 years. 2024, of course, they started the first half slow, but June is where they start to turn it around with a 16-win month. D-backs finished this month with 15 wins after getting swept by the Miami Marlins. So disappointing to see, and so many series that the D-backs could have won, so many games that the D-backs could have won, not only in June, but just throughout this season. And this is going to be another year where we're going to get to September. D-backs are going to just miss out on the postseason, and we're going to say, man, there were so many games throughout the year where the D-backs just blew it, and it was probably because of their bullpen. But we'll talk about Torey Lovullo, his management style, and whether the D-backs need to switch up their management style. We'll discuss all that in segment number 2. But first, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel, because summer sports are in full swing. And whether you're all about under the lights for baseball, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay, and sadly right now, I bet against the D-backs unless Ryne Nelson is on the mound, because when he's on the mound, I take the D-backs money line. I take the over on innings pitch. I take the under on the run line for the opposing team. And when that 3-leg hits, it brings a big smile to my face. If you want a big smile on your face, just visit FanDuel.com. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 of bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Oh, and let's read a couple comments. Mostly just K Cassidy 90 going crazy in the chat. And one of their comments kind of leads into my next segment because K Cassidy says Nelson hit his pitch count. We don't need another Tommy John. I understand what you're saying, K Cassidy. He hit his pitch count. Doesn't need another Tommy John, but it's like, at what point is Ryne Nelson ready, right? Like, how many starts does he need to go over 90 pitches? Like, my problem with Torey Lovullo and the idea of the pitch count and the rest and all this is like, I don't know if I believe that there's enough signs to really back that what Torey Lovullo is doing is good for the player's health. Like, in theory, I think it is, but then you actually watch the D-backs, you see what happens to our team, and we're getting injured more than anybody else. So you could say, yeah, I don't want another Tommy John, but we were the ones that threw Justin Martinez out there when he clearly didn't look right, when he was topping out at 96 miles an hour, when he had a dead fatigued arm. It was us, the D-backs, Torey Lovullo, the training staff that was throwing him out there. He's watching Josh Naylor struggle, throwing him out there, putting him in the lineup, scratching him out the lineup the very next day, then saying he's going to be fine, he's going to be playing on Sunday. And then, of course, he's not playing because he's still hurt. Like, the D-backs have no idea when it comes to their training staff. I'm not sure if their X-ray machines work. Like, Gabby Moreno, we said he was fine after getting hit by a pitch. Then he goes on the injury list. He comes back. He keeps playing. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, actually, Gabby, you have a fracture. You should be out maybe a month or two. And it's like, this D-backs training staff has no idea when it comes to their team's health and player injuries. And Torey Lovullo is the guy who always says, let's, err on the side of caution. Let's look out for our players. But then it feels like our actions, tell us something different. And for Torey Lovullo, I know on the broadcast, they were talking a lot about how recently he went to Chick-fil-A because they're running the Chick-fil-A program crossover with the D-backs, and the kids at Chick-fil-A were telling Torey Lovullo, hey, listen, we know the bullpen, is kind of struggling. Solution, how about you keep your starter out there longer? How about you don't go to your bullpen right away? They kept talking about that on the broadcast multiple times, and all of a sudden, Ryne Nelson with 2 on in the 7th inning, he had his moment, 2 outs. You could keep Ryne Nelson out there at 88 pitches, or you could go to the bullpen. And Torey Lovullo elected to go to the pen. And of course, it burned the D-backs. And in the presser, Torey Lovullo said he hit his pitch count. I care about the numbers. He was like, I know the risk. I weighed the risk. I knew in that situation something bad could happen, but I would much rather err on the side of health and caution than put Ryne Nelson in a compromising situation. And that's where I just push back against Torey Lovullo, because I do care about the player's health, but so far it doesn't feel like the D-backs have any sort of grasp on players' health. And I don't like doing it when we're sacrificing wins. Like, yes, I care about Ryne Nelson and his pitch count, but he's been a starter for multiple weeks now. He's been a starter going back to last season, and I just feel like he should have closed out that 7th. Knowing your bullpen is as bad as it is, it's like Ryne Nelson can't go one more out. You're telling me the pitch count is that important? His arm is going to explode if he has to make 4, 5, 6, 7 more pitches? Like, I just don't believe it, and that's where I would like to have a manager that has a little bit more feel for the game, or a manager that just says, you know what, I play my best guys. And that's why I brought up Tom Thibodeau as a comparison. And I said, do we need a more Tom Thibodeau-esque manager? Because if you don't watch NBA basketball, Tom Thibodeau is this manager in basketball. Just got fired by the New York Knicks, actually, but took them to the conference finals. And he's known for good or bad, running his players into the ground. But it's because what he does is he plays his best guys most of the game, right? When you look at the New York Knicks this past season, their starting five, he played their starting five more than like any other player in basketball. Like the top 10 players in minutes per game in the NBA, half of them I think was the Knicks starting five, because he's going to play his best players. And for Torey Lovullo, I would like him to do that a little bit more. Or I would like a manager that just came in and said, you know what? We're not going to sit players in Coors Field. I don't understand going into Coors Field, a series where you need the victories. You're trying to stay in this wild card race, and you're like, oh, man, the altitude, right? For these baseball players who might do 3 sprints over the course of 3 hours, like, man, we really got to make sure their oxygen level's high enough. Uh, like you think Andy Reid, when he plays the Broncos, he's like, man, let me not play, Patrick Mahomes the 5th series of a football game, because I'm sure he needs to catch his breath. You think when basketball players do playoff series in Denver, they're like, let me not play him, the second game, at home in Denver, just because I got to make sure his health is fine. Like, the Dbacks, when it comes to players' health, have no grasp on the situation, and we just sit guys, I think, to sit guys. I know the numbers might say one thing, but I just don't agree with the amount of times that we sit guys, the win when we sit guys, and we do it in sacrifice of wins, which is just so frustrating because we're a mid-market team. We're out there battling these giant California teams in the NL West, these giant East Coast teams in the NL East, and it's like we can't be sitting our best players as much as we do, and that's why I get so frustrated and so heated up on this topic, because there are just so many times throughout the year where we're just sitting our best position players because I guess they were due up for rest, and it just like I just don't understand why we rest guys as much as we do. And I think tonight was a night where thankfully the D-backs offense came back. We saw the answer backs, but this could have been a night where the analytics and making sure guys fresh just could have came back to hurt us. Like, we're a team fighting for wild card games, fighting for wild card matchups. And it's like, if you ask Ryne Nelson, I'm sure Ryne Nelson wouldn't mind risking injury for a few more pitches. Like, you watch Tyrese Halliburton, you watch all these stars in these big games. Obviously, we're not in the postseason right now, but the D-backs do not win these games. They're not going to make it to the postseason. And we've seen the KDs and the Tyrese Halliburtons, with calf strains going to these big postseason games, risking injury, and they do get hurt. They have these career-altering injuries, but they always say, it was worth it. I would rather put my body on the line for a chance to win it all than not. And obviously, the D-backs are not in the World Series right now, but if you ask Ryne Nelson, you're at your pitch count of 88. Do you trust yourself to get to 93, 94, 95 pitches without your arm exploding? I think Ryne Nelson would have felt okay to do that. And so I just wish we had a manager that sometimes was like, you know what? Let me actually run my guys into the ground. Let me just play my best players, Let me actually rely on my best relievers more. Let me throw J-Mart out there, or maybe run him to the ground. Maybe that's how you get these guys hurt at the same time, but these guys are getting hurt anyway. So why save them? Why keep them like, like you just pulled a Charizard or you don't want to take him out the package? Like, rip the package open, use your best players, and let's stop sitting our best dudes so often. Now we'll discuss if the real Zac Gallen will stand up in Game 2 against the San Francisco Giants. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Monarch Money, because ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's see if we can read some more comments. Scott Mack said, Lovullo and his emotional, touchy-feely kid glove management style ain't working. Scott Mack with some fire. And then Scott Mack and Kay Cassidy are going off in the comments. I'm not going to read every comment that they have because they have a lot. Chadley GPT has a comment, though. Halliburton, not the best example. I don't know the answer. I think you and Torey are both valid, though. AZ is just cursed. I do respect Chadley GPT saying I'm valid. Thank you, Chadley. But let's get back to the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's discuss Zac Gallen pitching against the San Francisco Giants. And if this is the game, if this is the start where Zac Gallen can finally start to look like himself, because my goodness, Zac Gallen has been bad this year. He's been atrocious, and it's like you can't even really find any like defining numbers to really help Gallen out because he's kind of just been bad in all areas in 2025, and no one really has any explanation. And you just watch Gallen in these starts, you could just tell he's searching. He's like confused with himself because he's such an analytical, such a methodical pitcher. And it's like you could just tell he's rattled and just doesn't understand why his stuff hasn't been working in 2025. And we don't know either. And obviously this Dbacks pitching staff doesn't know either, the pitching coaches, which is really disappointing to see. And it hasn't been much better at home for him this year. He has a 6.29 ERA at Chase Field, which is actually worse than his road ERA of 5.21. And so Zac Gallen is going to go out there and he's going to try and give the D-backs a W, but we know he has been struggling mightily in 2025. And so the expectations are not high for Zac Gallen, but maybe against San Fran, things can be different. You can make the argument that San Fran very familiar with Zac Gallen. They've seen him a ton over the last few years, but can also make the argument Zac Gallen has seen these hitters a ton, and he knows how to pitch against them, because you look at the numbers for Zac Gallen, his career against these Giants hitters, the numbers are pretty good against the entire lineup, 208 average and a 682 OPS. And against a guy like Mike Yastrzemski, who has 28 at-bats against Zac Gallen, 0 home runs. He only has 7 hits. He's got 0 home runs, and he's got 10 strikeouts to those just 7 hits. And so a guy like him has struggled against Zac Gallen. Willy Adames, 1 for 18 in his career against Zac Gallen. So you look at some of the better players on this team, and Zac Gallen has done a good job against these Giants hitters. And so Kay Cassidy says Gallen, the expired milk. That is just so frustrating to see. But Zac Gallen has looked like expired milk this season, but maybe against the San Francisco Giants, a team that he has pitched well against recently. You look at his numbers against the Giants last year in 2024, 6 innings, 1 earned run in September. He had 2 September starts. He went 6 innings, no earned runs, and then 6 innings, 1 earned run. Those were his 2 most previous starts against San Fran. Plus, combined with the career numbers against the Giants hitters in that lineup, the numbers suggest, and the recent history suggests, Zac Gallen pitches well against the San Francisco Giants. But, of course, watching Zac Gallen in 2025 does not inspire any confidence whatsoever. But for the D-backs, if the bottom of the lineup can continue to do what they do, because we know Gabby Moreno, he's hurt. Jose Herrera, we'll see if he plays tomorrow, because a guy like James McCann, I think it should be a real conversation between him and Jose Herrera. I think a night like tonight is great for the Herrera confidence boost and keep him around in the lineup. I can't deny, I do like the way James McCann looks at the plate, and I do feel like he has better catching skills overall, better defensive player, and I think he calls a better game probably than Herrera too. So I wonder who plays in game number 2, especially with Zac Gallen on the mound. His numbers have been pretty good with Jose Herrera in 2025, but I wonder James McCann, who basically walked Zac Gallen through that whole start last time, called the whole game for him, veteran catcher. I wonder if the D-backs go back with James McCann as, sort of more of a softball approach with Zac Gallen, ease his way into the game a little bit more. Would love to see the power keep going for Suarez and Gurriel. Suarez just finished the month of June 1 home run shy for the June record of home runs, of 1 home run shy, tying Luis Gonzalez for the June home run record in D-backs franchise history. So he just finished a fantastic month. His batting average, if you could believe it, higher than the Lourdes Gurriel. It's up to 257. Like, if I told you Suarez is at 257 and Geraldo Perdomo is at 262, would you be surprised? Because Suarez, I mean, after Ketel Marte, Suarez might be second on this team in batting average with Corbin Carroll out the lineup, which is just insane to think about. But that's how well Suarez has been playing recently. That's how well he's been playing in the month of June. And both him and Gurriel have really turned it around after a slow start. I mean, the power has always been there for Suarez from the start of the year, but he was still like home run or bust. Now he's kind of doing everything, spraying the ball all over the field, getting extra base hits. And then like we saw Gurriel today, home run, and he's just been on fire the last few weeks after the first month of the season where he looked terrible. Lourdes Gurriel has been really, really strong since then. So good to see the two D-backs right-handed batters continue to pick it up, especially with a lot of these D-backs lefties out, the Corbin Carrolls, the Josh Naylors. The D-backs righties have needed to step up, and Suarez and Gurriel have done that. Guy like Jake McCarthy, he's been a nice welcome addition back. He's had some nice hard contact, and he's been using that speed, laying down bunts when pitchers aren't expecting it. And so the offense, always incredible. And it's going to be sad because we're going to have back-to-back years where the D-backs finished last year as the best offense in the National League, and the D-backs are on track again to finish as a top 3 offense in the National League at the very least. And if they don't make the postseason with a top 3 offense in back-to-back years, I think that's an unmitigated disaster by the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so, yes, they have to make it to the postseason. We got 2 weeks left. Looking at the schedule, D-backs, 4-game series against the Giants, 3 against the Royals, 4 against the Padres, 3 against the Angels. You would say that's 2-2 in terms of the competition level, right? Angels and Royals easy, Giants and Padres tough. But considering the D-backs just finished a losing record versus the White Sox, Rockies, and Marlins, tough to say anybody is an easy out for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.